Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hit the like button, share your thoughts, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. The slap that changed everything. It happened in the hallway. Loud, echoing, and sharp. A slap, then a stunned silence. Every head turned. Time seemed to stop as the sound bounced off the lockers, and there she stood, frozen, stiff, her back still bent slightly forward from the impact. Her books lay scattered across the floor. Her hair, once carefully brushed and neat, now covered half her face. Her lips trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on the girl who'd done it. That girl, Brielle smirked. Next time, she said loud enough for the watching crowd. Walk faster, new girl. A few students chuckled nervously. Some pulled out their phones. A few whispered, but most just stared, waiting for the new girl to cry, yell, or run. She did none of those things. The new girl straightened herself, slowly, calmly. She picked up her books one by one. Not a word, not a tear, but her eyes, they were ice. That moment, a single slap in a crowded hallway, would change everything. Her name was Zaria. She'd just transferred to Jefferson High 2 days ago. No one knew where she came from. No one knew why she was always so quiet. No one knew she didn't need anyone's help or their approval. But bullies never wait to understand. They pounced the moment they smelled difference. Zaria was different. She didn't smile when forced. She didn't speak unless needed. She dressed neat but simple. No flashy brands, no makeup, just clean, confident silence. And in Jefferson High, silence is a target. It started with whispers the day she arrived. Is she mute? She's too good to talk to us. What's up with that straight face? By lunch, Brielle, the self-declared queen of the school, had taken notice. That girl gives me stuck-up vibes, she said loudly at the cafeteria table. Let's see how long she lasts. Her little crew, Tia, Sky, and Mel, laughed in sync like trained parrots. By day 2, they were already plotting little humiliations. They moved her chair before she could sit. They hid her backpack during gym. They accidentally spilled soda on her tray. Zaria said nothing, and somehow, that silence made them hate her more, until that slap in the hallway. That night, Zaria sat at the kitchen table, quietly finishing her homework. Across from her sat a tall man in a crisp white shirt, his tie loosened, his badge resting on the table beside his laptop. He glanced at her, his daughter, and noticed the faint red mark on her cheek. Zaria, he said softly, what happened at school? She looked up, expression unreadable. Just a slap. His eyes narrowed. Someone hit you? Zaria hesitated, then nodded once. A girl. It's fine. No, it's not fine. His voice was calm, but there was a storm behind it. Zaria closed her book. It's not the time. He leaned back slowly. You know I can have the school swarming with agents tomorrow. She shook her head. I don't want that. I need to handle this my way. A long pause. Then, he nodded. All right, I trust you. But you come to me the moment it goes too far. Zaria stood, hugged him gently, and whispered, it already did. Then she went to bed. The next day, everything felt different. Zaria walked into school like she hadn't been slapped in front of half the student body. Head high, face calm, even more silent than before. And for some reason, that scared people more than if she had screamed. Brielle saw her at her locker and walked past, brushing her shoulder. You gonna cry today? Or still pretending you're cool? Zaria didn't respond, just looked at her. And Brielle suddenly felt uncomfortable. Like prey. In class, Mr. Hargrove asked the students to pair up for a group presentation. Zaria, as expected, was left standing alone. I'll just work alone, she said plainly. No, Mr. Hargrove smiled. You'll pair with Noah. Heads turned. Noah Carter, the quiet boy who rarely talked to anyone. Tall, wore hoodies even, in summer, top of every subject, and completely invisible. Noah gave a small nod and moved to sit beside her. They didn't speak for the first 5 minutes. Then he leaned in and said, you know Brielle's done this before. 2 other girls, but they always transfer out. Zaria didn't even look up. I'm not like other girls. Noah blinked. Yeah, I figured. Later that day, Zaria was called to the counselor's office. Mrs. Keene, middle-aged and always overly cheerful, greeted her with a wide smile. Zaria, come in. Have a seat. Zaria sat. I heard there was a little incident yesterday. Are you okay? Zaria stared at her. What do you mean by little? Mrs. Keene cleared her throat. I mean, well, Sometimes students get into disagreements. It wasn't a disagreement, Zaria said calmly. It was assault. The counselor blinked. Right, well, I understand. We just want to make sure you're adjusting. I'm not here to adjust. I'm here to graduate. Mrs. Keene tried another smile. Well, if you ever want to talk, Zaria stood. I already did. To someone who matters. And walked out. At lunch, Brielle's table was louder than usual. She's such a freak, Mel said, tossing a grape at Zaria from across the room. She's not reacting. Skywind. She's boring. She's hiding something. Brielle muttered. No girl takes a slap like that and just ... walks away. Tia laughed. Maybe she's one of those weirdos who likes it. Or maybe ... Brielle's voice slowed. She's planning something. The girls went quiet, because deep down, they felt it too. Something was off. Meanwhile, Noah sat with Zaria on the far side of the courtyard. You've got everyone guessing, he said. Zaria glanced at him. Let them. He hesitated, then asked the question everyone was secretly wondering. Who is your dad? Zaria smiled slightly, the first real expression she'd shown, then replied, let's just say, people usually regret finding out. That night, Zaria sat at her desk, her laptop open, tabs loaded with Jefferson High's student directory, disciplinary records, and social media profiles. One by one, she built a file. Names, photos, patterns, everything she needed. She wasn't planning a fight, she was planning a takedown. One that didn't need fists or yelling. Just strategy. Just truth. Timing. And maybe a little help from someone who wore a badge with 3 bold letters on it. The first warning shot. By Monday morning, something had changed at Jefferson High. The air felt tight. Unspoken tension pulsed through the hallways like electricity before a storm. Brielle strutted through the crowd like usual, chin high, surrounded by her loyal shadows, Sky, Mel, and Tia. But even she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. Not someone, something. She turned around once or twice, caught students glancing at her. A few whispered, that wasn't new. What was new? The looks they gave, less admiration, more suspicion. And it all started when someone posted a private video clip to a school-wide group chat the night before. It was just 18 seconds long, grainy, taken from a phone, but clear enough. It showed Brielle slapping Zaria, and Zaria not flinching. The audio caught Brielle's voice, cruel and taunting. Next time, walk faster, new girl. Then silence. The video had no caption, no edits, no drama, but it spread like fire. Zaria watched the chaos unfold from her locker, not reacting as always. A girl from her science class passed by and murmured, that was brave. Another slipped a small note in her locker that simply read, she's done this to me too. I'm so sorry. Zaria kept them all. Quiet trophies. Meanwhile, Brielle was boiling at lunch. She slammed her tray onto the table, startling her own crew. Who filmed that? She snapped. Tia shrugged. I thought we were alone. Mel looked panicked. We didn't even post it. Someone else must have had their phone out. Sky frowned. I told you she was weird. She's probably recording everything. She's playing the victim, Brielle hissed. But I'm not gonna let some emotionless freak take me down. Just then, a slip of paper fell onto the middle of their table. One had seen who placed it. Brielle unfolded it slowly. Just one sentence. Typed, it only takes one match to burn a kingdom. That night, Zaria sat in her room, reviewing footage, not just from the slap, but from weeks before she even enrolled. Her father had given her access to a private database, strictly off the record for educational purposes, he had said. With a wink, she'd used it to build profiles on every major player at Jefferson High. Not just Brielle, the staff, the administration, the secrets. Her dad had taught her to rule since she was little. Never attack until you understand everything. The most powerful weapon is silence, and now, her silence had started to make noise. The next morning, a printed photo appeared on the bulletin board in the main hallway. It was a selfie. Brielle, clearly drunk, flashing a bottle of vodka at a house party. Red Solo cups, blurry background, school shirt still visible. It had a sticky note attached. Nice leadership skills. From your class president. By 10 a.m., Principal Green had called her into the office. Zaria walked past as Brielle came out. Flustered, pale, visibly shaken. Their eyes met. For the first time, Brielle looked unsure. Zaria didn't say a word, She didn't have to dot in the library. Noah leaned in and whispered, "You're making people nervous." Zaria flipped a page. He paused. Briel's bad, sure. But the school board, administration, you're digging into everyone. Zaria looked up. Because they let her do this for years. They smiled, ignored it, covered it. Noah nodded. So this is revenge. Zaria shook her head. It's justice, she whispered. And justice is colder than revenge. On Thursday, something new happened. Zaria was called to the principal's office. She entered. Principal Green sat at his desk, arms folded. "Zaria," he said with a forced smile, "I hear you've had a few incidents." She tilted her head. "I was slapped in front of half the school." "That's not an incident, that's abuse." "Yes, well," he coughed, "we're investigating that. But," he continued, "somehow, a few very personal materials have leaked. Photos, videos, student files." Zaria's expression didn't change. "That's awful." He stared at her. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" She smiled slightly. "Should I?" Green shifted uncomfortably. "Let's not play games." "I don't play games," Zaria said, standing. "I play chess," and walked out. By Friday, Jefferson High was falling apart from the inside. Teachers whispered about emails being leaked. Parents were calling the office about inappropriate behavior by staff members. A rumor spread that Coach Daniels was being suspended for covering up bullying complaints. In the cafeteria, Briel sat alone. One by one, her friends had started distancing themselves. Sky was busy faking a headache. Tia switched tables for mental peace. Mel had deleted her socials and went silent. Briel could feel her world shrinking. And Zaria hadn't even touched her. That afternoon, Zaria opened her locker and found an envelope. Inside was a single note in messy handwriting. "You're dangerous. I like it. Let's talk. A friend." She frowned. It was unsigned. Was it a trap, a warning, or something else entirely? She tucked it into her pocket and walked away. That night, Zaria and her dad sat across from each other again. He was quiet, this time, watching her. "You've made quite the impression," he finally said. Zaria raised a brow. "How do you know?" He pushed his phone toward her. It displayed an encrypted message. "Your daughter is impressive. Controlled chaos. We're watching her progress." HQ. Zaria stared at it. "You sent them something?" she asked. "No, they're just ... observant." Pause. "Do you want to join the academy someday?" She looked up. "Not yet. First I need to finish high school. Then, I want to clean up places like this." Her dad nodded. "Just don't lose yourself. Power can be loud, but real strength, it's quiet. You're doing good. Just be careful." Zaria's face softened. "I know, Dad." He smiled. "That's my girl." Monday morning came again. A school-wide announcement boomed over the speakers. "Attention students. All extracurricular leadership positions are temporarily suspended pending review. Student council elections will be re-held next month." Briel's voice echoed in the hallway. "What? You can't do that." But they could. And Zaria just watched from her locker. That was the first real checkmate. The queen had fallen, but Zaria wasn't done. The spy in her shadows, Arya never trusted easily. And Jefferson High had only confirmed why she shouldn't. But even she didn't expect betrayal to come from the one person who had stood silently by her side. Noah Carter. It started with a feeling, a strange shift in his gaze. The way he watched her more closely now, asking deeper questions, not just curious questions, strategic ones. "Where did you learn to move like this? What else are you planning? Are you working alone?" She brushed them off, casually, but her guard went up, because the only thing worse than a loud enemy was a quiet traitor. By Tuesday, the school was in full meltdown. 3 teachers were being investigated. 2 school board members had stepped down, and Briel, she was almost invisible now. No more smirks, no more cruel jokes, but Zaria knew better than to believe she was done. Snakes don't die, they hide, and that's exactly what Briel was doing, plotting, waiting, bleeding, silently in the library that afternoon. Noah leaned in like usual, but this time his voice was unusually low. "You know," he said, "they say someone's been accessing staff files from the faculty server, late nights, untraceable." Zaria didn't look up. "That's so?" "Yeah." He paused. "They also say there's a student who isn't just a student, that she's connected, watched, protected." Zaria closed her book softly. "Sounds like a rumor. Sounds like the truth." Noah whispered. A long silence passed. Then Zaria met his eyes, calm, clear, eyes sharp. "I know who's been accessing the files," she said softly. "And I know who's been watching me." Noah stiffened. "Who?" She stood up slowly, packing her bag. "You," she said, and walked away that night. She found the hidden camera in her locker. It was tiny, tucked inside the air vent near the top. Someone had been recording her, not just on campus, but inside her private space. She placed it gently in a plastic bag, sealed it, and wrote on the front, "Try again." Then she dropped it in Noah's locker without a word. Wednesday brought more rumors. One said the police might raid the school. Another claimed a staff member had been escorted out in handcuffs early that morning. Zaria knew both were true, because her father had told her over breakfast. "You're making waves," he said. "But they've started pushing back. Someone from the school tried to file a complaint about you, anonymously." She sipped her orange juice. "Noah," he nodded once. "We're investigating him. Quietly, but he's clean. Officially. No criminal record, but something about him doesn't sit right." Zaria exhaled deeply. "He's hiding something." Later that day, she followed Noah after school. He didn't see her. He wasn't as careful as he thought. He left the school building and walked past the convenience store, then disappeared into an alley. Zaria followed, quiet, quick. What she saw stopped her cold. Noah was standing under a fire escape, speaking to a man in a dark hoodie. She moved closer, careful not to make a sound. The man said something Zaria couldn't hear, but Noah nodded, then handed him a small flash drive. Her stomach dropped. She stepped back, heart pounding. The man glanced around. She ducked behind a dumpster just in time. Noah walked away first. Zaria stayed hidden, hand over her chest. She wasn't scared. She was furious. That night, she called her father. "I need something," she said. He didn't ask questions. By midnight, she had what she needed, a tap on the flash drive's serial number, and by morning, the report was waiting in her inbox. The drive contained 3 months of faculty emails suspended, student records, a copy of Zaria's enrollment file, and the last person to access the data, Principal Green. Zaria's eyes narrowed. Noah wasn't just spying. He was working with the administration at school. Zaria played her part. She walked past Noah like nothing had happened, sat beside him in class, laughed at his weak jokes, but every move he made, she watched. Every word he said, she weighed. And when he tried again to push her for information, this time asking about her real motive, she gave him just enough. "Let's just say I believe in balance," she said. "I take from those who steal. I expose those who hide. That's balance." Noah smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He was scared now, and that meant he knew she knew. The next day it all snapped. Zaria was called to the office again, but this time, when she walked in, Noah was sitting there too, beside Principal Green. The principal folded his hands. "Zaria," he said, "we've received reports that you've been conducting surveillance on other students." Zaria blinked once. "Reports from who?" Green nodded to Noah. Noah's voice shook slightly. "I've seen her with files, hacking school servers. She's building a case against the staff." Zaria's face stayed blank. "You're accusing me of criminal behavior," she said quietly. "Yes," Noah said. Zaria turned to Principal Green. "Then prove it." Green looked uncomfortable. "We're checking your devices. If we find anything you won't," she interrupted. He frowned. "Why not?" "Because I already cleaned them 2 weeks ago." A pause. "And while we're sharing secrets," she added, stepping closer, "would you like to explain this?" She dropped a printed screenshot on the desk. It showed an email from Principal Green's private account, instructing staff to ignore repeat complaints and prioritize image over action. Below that, a forwarded message with Noah's name listed as a student liaison. The principal paled. Noah shot up from his seat. "She's lying. She's manipulating files." "Check the metadata," Zaria said calmly. "Check the timestamps. Check the source." She turned to walk out, then paused. "Oh, and Noah," she said without turning. "Next time you spy for someone, make sure you're not being watched, too." By the time the sun set that day, everything had changed. Principal Green was suspended. Noah was removed from campus under safety review. Zaria, she walked home, her shadow long and straight behind her. She'd won again, but she didn't feel like celebrating. Because for the first time since arriving, she felt tired, not physically, emotionally. She had wanted justice. She had wanted change, but the deeper she dug, the uglier it got. And now she wasn't sure where the corruption ended, or how many enemies were still hiding in the dark. That night, she sat in her room, staring at her wall, now covered with photos, notes, and red string connecting names. There were more names to investigate, more power games to unravel. But then, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. It read, "Impressive moves, but you just made your real enemy nervous. Be careful, she's not done." Attached was a photo, a blurry shot of Brielle, meeting someone in the back seat of a black car. Zaria's breath caught, because the license plate, it wasn't local, it was federal. Her father's secret file. It was past midnight. Zaria sat at the edge of her bed, phone in hand, eyes locked on the blurry photo of Brielle in the back seat of the black car. She zoomed in, grainy, but one detail stood out, the small golden eagle emblem on the license plate. Federal, but not FBI. This wasn't her dad's agency, it was someone else's. She walked to her closet, reached behind her boxers, and pulled out the emergency folder her father had given her on her 13th birthday. "If you ever feel like you're being hunted," he'd said, "don't panic, just open this and follow step 1. Tonight, she was skipping to step 4. The file inside was labeled, AGIs only, Shadow Personnel Watch List. She flipped through page after page of faces, descriptions, code names. Most she didn't recognize, until she did. Codename, Silk, alias, Brielle A. Monroe. Affiliation, undisclosed surveillance recruitment program. Shadow, division status, active asset in testing phase. Objective, field observation, control operations, social manipulations. Zaria sat down hard. Brielle wasn't just a school bully. She was part of a federal test program. This school wasn't her playground, it was her assignment. The next morning, Zaria walked through Jefferson High, like she always did, quiet, calm, unreadable, but her mind was racing. Every cruel comment from Brielle, every slap, every staged confrontation. It hadn't been random, it was scripted, controlled. She was the lab rat. In history class. Brielle looked different. No more fake bravado. No more glaring. She was watching now, waiting, as if she knew Zaria had seen the file. When the bell rang, Zaria grabbed her bag and moved toward the door, but Brielle blocked her path. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Brielle said softly, "You shouldn't go snooping in files that aren't yours." Zaria didn't blink. "You shouldn't touch things you can't control." Brielle smiled faintly. "You think I can't control you? I think you already lost control," Zaria replied, stepping around her. "And now you're scared." For the first time Brielle didn't answer. At lunch, Zaria received another anonymous envelope in her locker. Inside were 3 photos. One of her father, younger, standing with a woman she didn't recognize. Another, of the same woman, now older, sitting beside Brielle in the back of that same black car. And the third, her father shaking hands with the director of the Shadow Division. Zaria's fingers trembled as she held the last photo. Was it a coincidence? Or had her father known all along? Was she just another piece in someone else's experiment? That night, she stormed into his home office. "I want the truth," she said. He looked up from his files, calm as always. "About what?" "About Brielle, about the program, about everything." A pause. Then he sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Sit down, Zaria." She died in single quotes. He continued anyway. "Brielle Monroe is the daughter of Jacqueline Pierce. She was my partner once. Before your mother." Zaria's heart pounded. She worked in psychological warfare, designed the Shadow Division's early youth programs. "You mean this school?" Zaria snapped. "Yes," he said softly. "Jefferson High is one of 5 test locations in the country. They're breeding social weapons, young people trained to lead, manipulate, and dismantle systems from the inside." "You let me walk into this?" she asked, voice shaking. "I didn't know Brielle would be your match," he admitted. "She was reassigned recently. I only found out 2 weeks ago." "Why didn't you pull me out?" "Because you were winning." Zaria stared at him. Her own father, the man she trusted more than anyone, had let her walk into an trap to see what she would do. "You used me," she whispered. "No," he said firmly. "I believed in you. I'm not your weapon." "No," he said again. "You're better. You're aware. And they didn't plan for that." She turned and left, without another word. The next morning, something inside Zaria had changed. The anger was still there, but beneath it, something else had started to grow. Purpose. If Brielle had been trained to manipulate, then Zaria would be the one to break the system, not just expose it, shatter it. At school she went quiet, didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't confront, didn't fight. Instead, she watched, listened, planted. And by the end of the week, she had what she needed, a folder of evidence, a recording of a secret meeting between Brielle and a shadow division handler, screenshots of chat logs, instructions, and evaluation notes on other students, coded in psychological behavior tags like compliant, rebellious, susceptible. Jefferson High was a lab, and the students were lab rats. That weekend, Zaria called a meeting. She texted 3 names. Mel, Tia, Sky, formerly Brielle's loyal sidekicks, now disillusioned. They met her in the abandoned gym. Zaria laid the files on the table and didn't say a word. They flipped through pages, eyes widened, hands trembled. Finally, Mel whispered, "We were being studied." Zaria nodded. "You were her puppets, part of her assignment." Tia whispered, "Why are you showing us this?" "Because if we're going to stop her," Zaria said, "I can't do it alone." A long silence. Then Sky said, "What do you want us to do?" Monday morning, the real operation began. Sky accidentally left a flash drive in the AV booth. It contained select clips from Brielle's secret meetings. Tia distributed anonymous notes with quotes from the Shadow Division's evaluation logs. Mel dropped photos of the car, the Golden Eagle plate in classrooms and teacher mailboxes. Zaria simply watched. The school was waking up, and Brielle was spiraling. By Wednesday, Brielle confronted her in the hallway. No audience, no entourage, just the two of them. "You think you've won," she hissed. "You don't know how deep this goes." Zaria looked at her calmly. "Deeper than your ego." "This wasn't about you," Brielle snapped. "You were just a test." "So were you," Zaria said. "You just didn't know it." Something flickered in Brielle's eyes. Fear, doubt. Zaria leaned in. "You think you're the project, but what if you're the control?" Brielle stepped back, because in that moment, Zaria saw it. Brielle didn't know her own truth. That evening, Zaria sent everything, the files, the recordings, the chat logs, to 3 national reporters, using a burner email. Subject: "Children are being used as weapons in your schools. Here's proof." By morning, the story was everywhere. Jefferson High made national headlines. Experimental program exposed high school students, manipulated in federal shadow. Project Zaria sat in her kitchen, watching the coverage with a blank expression. Her father stood beside her, arms folded. "You know," he said quietly, "you've just made a lot of powerful enemies." Zaria replied, without blinking, "Good." At school, FBI agents arrived by 11 a.m. The principal was escorted out in handcuffs. Brielle gone. Her locker cleaned. No trace left. But she'd left behind one final note in Zaria's locker. "It's not over. You were never the only one." Zaria read it slowly. Then smiled. Because now, it wasn't about just her anymore. It was about every student in every hidden program across the country. She folded the note, slipped it into her back pocket, and walked away, head high. Heart steady. Mission clear. She unleashed the files. Zaria didn't flinch when they knocked on her door. She'd been expecting them. 2 federal agents in gray suits, cold faces, tense shoulders. "We need to speak with Zaria Johnson," one of them said. She stepped aside. "She's me." Her father stood quietly in the hallway, arms crossed but unreadable. They didn't ask permission. They stepped in. The taller one introduced himself as Agent Rourke, the other as Agent Lim. "You recently leaked classified government data to the press," Rourke said. Zaria didn't answer. "We traced the files. Your encryption was impressive, but not invisible." Still, she said nothing. Lim leaned forward. "Zaria, you've compromised a national intelligence program. People are furious. Powerful people." Zaria finally looked up, her voice calm. "Good. Then, I did it right. They didn't arrest her. Not yet. Instead, they warned her to stay silent, warned her to let the press die down, warned her not to poke deeper." She just stared at them. "You put children into fake friendships," she said softly. "You built social experiments where teenagers were told who to trust, who to hate, who to destroy." "Everything was supervised," Lim replied. "No," Zaria snapped. "Everything was designed. That's not supervision. That's control." Agent Rourke narrowed his eyes. Be careful, Ms. Johnson. You may think you've exposed something ugly, but you haven't even seen the darkest part yet. After they left, her father finally spoke. You humiliated a national agency, he said. You'll be watched. Zaria didn't argue. Instead, she walked back to her room and opened a second USB drive. She had only released half the files. Now, the other half, the darker side, sat in her hands. She hadn't shared these yet, because even she had hesitated. These were the red level files. Experimental test logs, manipulation patterns, covert psychiatric reports on teens like her, coded by race, gender, temperament. 1. Entries stood out. Subject 19B, likely rebel, emotional resilience, above average, daughter of FBI Deputy Director. Recommendation, controlled sabotage. Zaria stared at the screen. It was about her, but something else caught her eye. One final entry, subject to 4R, shadow agent in training, extreme loyalty, embedded in all test locations, unmonitored. The file had no name, no photo, only one note. She knows too much. Zaria's blood chilled, because just hours ago, she had received a text from an unknown number again. Don't release the rest, or 4R will find you. At school the next day, there were no bullies. No laughter, no whispers, no stares. Just silence. Everyone had read the news. Some looked at Zaria like a hero, others like she was radioactive. Either way, she didn't care. She walked down the hallway with calm control until someone tapped her shoulder. She turned. It was Madison Rivera, a shy sophomore. Never spoke to anyone. Except now, her eyes were wide, her voice trembling. You need to come with me. Zaria frowned. Why? I know who subject to 4R is. They met in the girls' locker room, where the cameras were never fixed. Madison paced nervously, fingers shaking. She's not a student. Not really, she said. She transfers every semester. New name, same face. She's here now. Who? Zaria asked. Madison hesitated, then whispered, Mrs. Kane. Zaria froze. Mrs. Kane, the guidance counselor, the one person every troubled student was sent to, the one who always seemed to calm. To knowing she's not even licensed. Madison said, handing her a printout. Her file's fake. I looked it up. She's not in any teacher registry. Zaria stared at the page. It was true. Mrs. Kane didn't exist, not officially. That night, Zaria broke into the school. She'd studied the security patterns for weeks now, avoided the cameras, knew which doors didn't lock properly. She slipped into Mrs. Kane's office at 12:47 a.m. and found a hidden cabinet beneath the floor. Inside were files. Hundreds. Each, with names, photos, psychological notes, and hidden at the back, a black binder. The cover said, Gen Z Control Initiative, Emotional Trigger Mapping. Zaria opened it with trembling hands. Inside were charts showing how to provoke breakdowns, how to isolate specific students, how to plant ideas in their minds to push them into rage, despair, even violence. And every file was tagged by target race. Zaria felt sick. This wasn't just a behavior study, it was weaponization. Then she heard it. A slow clap. She turned. Mrs. Kane stood in the doorway, smiling. Took you long enough, she said. Zaria stayed still. You're not surprised? Zaria asked. I've been watching you since your first day, Kane said. We all have. You were the hardest one to crack. Zaria's voice was ice. Because I'm not one of your puppets. Kane stepped forward. No, but you are something better, and that scares them. Who is them? Kane shrugged. The ones who designed this, the ones who want people like you silenced. You mean the ones I just exposed? Kane smiled. You exposed some of it, but not me, not this room. Zaria's voice was steady. Now I will. She ran. With the binder clutched to her chest. She burst out of the building. Kane didn't follow. Didn't need to, because she already knew. Zaria had become a threat too large to erase quietly, but that didn't mean they wouldn't try. By morning, Zaria uploaded the binder to the cloud, encrypted it, sent it to 3 civil rights organizations, to journalists, and 1 international watchdog. Then she walked into school like it was any other day, except it wasn't. A new wave had begun. By lunch, agents were outside again. Mrs. Kane, gone. Office cleared. But Zaria had already made physical copies, sent them to 3 people. The files couldn't be buried now. She had turned the entire control system against itself. But just before the final bell rang, her phone buzzed. Another message. This one had no words, just a 50-second video. It showed her father, tied to a chair, bruised, silent. A masked figure stepped into frame and whispered, "You should have kept quiet." Zaria's fingers clenched around the phone. This wasn't a warning, it was a war. She brought the whole house down. The video replayed in Zaria's head, over and over. Her father, the strongest man she knew, beaten, gagged, bound. They didn't even hide their threat. "You should have kept quiet." This wasn't about shutting her up anymore. It was about breaking her completely. But they'd made a mistake, because taking her father, that wasn't a scare tactic. That was war. She didn't cry, didn't panic. Instead, she opened her laptop, hands steady, mind sharper than ever. She accessed the secure cloud where she had stored the rest of the data, including the red level files she hadn't released yet, the ones that proved her father's own agency wasn't in control anymore. This wasn't just a rogue program. This was a separate unit, a Black Ops network hidden inside the system, answering to no one. Codenamed the Architect Initiative. Their job, build emotional weapons, not with bombs, but with people. And Zaria, she had just become their greatest threat. She made 3 phone calls, one to a national reporter who had begged her for an interview, one to the watchdog group who'd published her last leak, and the last to her father's oldest ally, Agent Niles Ray, a quiet but legendary internal affairs investigator. She remembered him from childhood, always calm, always watching. Now, she needed him more than ever. He answered after one ring. "Zaria." "They took him." Silence. "Then, send me the last files. All of them. I already have." Click. That was all. But it was enough. By midnight, Twitter exploded. Hashtag "Where is Director Johnson?" Hashtag "Architect Files." Hashtag "Shadow Schools Scandal." The public was no longer curious. Now, they were furious. And behind closed doors, the Architect Initiative was burning. The next day, Zaria received a plain, manila envelope slid under her bedroom door. Inside, a burner phone. It rang. A minute later, she answered. A voice, disguised, low, male. "We have your father. If you want to see him alive, do nothing else." Zaria said nothing. "You've already shown the world the edge of the knife." The voice continued, "But you haven't turned it yet. Do that, and you'll never see him again." Click. No name. No threat needed. But they'd underestimated her. Again. Zaria didn't back down. Instead, she opened her laptop and uploaded the final drop of files to every single major media outlet, domestic and international. Then, she used the burner phone's signal to trace the call's origin. It pinged from a location outside the city, near an abandoned federal training base. She shared the coordinates with Agent Niles. "I'm going," she told him. "You're not trained for this," he warned. "I've been trained my whole life," she replied. By nightfall, she was outside the base, dressed in black. Phone strapped to her chest. Not alone. Beside her were Mel, Tia, and Sky, the same girls who once laughed when Brielle humiliated her. The same girls who now stood by her, like sisters. "I don't know what's inside," Zaria whispered, "but I need eyes. I need backup." "We're not leaving without him," Mel said. Zaria smiled faintly. "Let's bring the house down." Inside the base, it was quiet, too quiet. Zaria slipped through the rusted halls, guided by the sound of faint electric humming. Then, she saw it, a door marked, Level 3, Authorized Personnel Only. She pushed it open. There he was, her father tied, bleeding, but alive. "Zaria," he croaked. She ran to him, tears finally rising. "I got you," she whispered. But before she could cut the ropes, the lights went out, and the voice returned. "You just made your final move." The room filled with red light. Out stepped Mrs. Kane, but not in her school clothes. Now, in combat boots, tactical gear, eyes dead cold. "You really don't know when to quit," she said. Zaria stood slowly. "Neither do you." Kane raised a gun, but before she could, pulled the trigger back. A shot rang out from behind. Kane staggered. Agent Niles stepped into the room, gun still smoking. "Class dismissed," he muttered. Kane collapsed. Zaria rushed to her father, cutting him loose. "I told you I was coming," Niles said. "Let's go." They ran. Outside, black SUVs lined the dirt road. Federal agents surrounded the compound. Helicopters hovered. Spotlights turned the night into day. The entire operation was being shut down. Zaria stood by her father's side as the architect. Base was seized, Mrs. Kane, alive, but under arrest. The files, already in the hands of international courts. There was no more hiding. A week later, Zaria stood at a press podium beside her father, now recovering, face stern but proud. The cameras flashed, microphones crowded. She looked out over the sea of faces, reporters, students, teachers, activists, people who once didn't know her name, now hanging on her every word. "My name is Zaria Johnson," she began. "I was bullied, slapped, and followed. I was labeled a target, a test, an experiment. But I fought back. I exposed the truth, not just for me, but for every student who was ever made to feel like they were less. Every kid who was forced to be part of a system they didn't choose. They called me a test subject." She paused, but I passed. The crowd exploded in applause. Her father looked at her with tears in his eyes. The girl they tried to break had become a symbol of unstoppable strength that night. As she sat alone on her rooftop, her phone buzzed again. One last anonymous message. Just 3 words. "You changed everything." Zaria smiled. She had. Not just the system, not just the program, the world. The end.